Hello, and welcome to Unlock the Power of Your Data with NetApp and Google Cloud, brought to you by NetApp. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso from the Channel Company. The cloud is often the platform of choice, or at least the hottest topic when discussing modern storage solutions. Due to the creation of new technologies and remote access needs, the cloud storage market is growing at a compound annual growth rate of nearly 22% and is expected to reach a value of $222.25 billion by 2027. NetApp and Google have the cloud solutions to meet your customers' growing needs. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Tudor, Senior Director of Hyperscaler Cloud Solutions at NetApp, and Sean Darrington, Senior Product Manager of Google Cloud at Google. Welcome, gentlemen. We're going to begin with our first segment, file storage in the cloud. Let's first address the different types of cloud storage: block, object, and file. Sean, why is file storage so important, and who or what in particular is using it and why?
Yeah, hi Katie. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Yeah, file storage is actually one of the things that everybody's used to on premises, and it's been around for decades, right? And the difference is that between file and block storage, which many people are familiar with, object storage is kind of the new thing that grew up in the cloud initially. And certainly there are solutions that we have object storage for on premises, but for most applications, they can't access an object protocol to do what they need to do to run the business. And so most applications actually rely on a file system, SMB or NFS, the unstructured data, all the home directories that we use on a daily basis, but also a lot of applications that need a file system and block storage like SAP. So when you're looking at like why the cloud, it's really about how companies are reimagining and re-architecting some of the applications to become more efficient themselves. And it might be more efficient just to run it in your own data center, and that's perfectly fine. But a lot of organizations are embarking on a cloud-based journey, and that means thinking about things differently, how I've done it on premises, how I'm going to do it in the cloud. And the more we can make it easy for people to move into the cloud, like with file storage, and have it be completely transparent to the applications, the easier it is for them to adopt it.
So, Jeff, going off of what Sean said, its legacy, file is still something so heavily used, but what challenges do these businesses face when storing so much data in file?
Well, first, Katie, thanks so much for asking me to be here today, and very pleased to work with my colleague, Sean. When you look at file, it's been around for many years. In fact, about 27 years ago, NetApp started out bringing external file storage into the data center. So we were there at the very beginning when, basically there's so much file storage that was growing beyond just the capacity that was inside of the server. They needed a separate landing zone for that. And so we created network attached storage so that you could have your file storage in a separate place. And then we created all this technology, such as snapshots and encryption and things like that would go onto it. But when a customer looks at how they migrate the bulk of their data in the cloud, first of all, about 80% of the data in a data center is a file-based, file. So there's two major kinds of protocols that they're going to need. One is the Windows or SMB protocol. The second is a Linux or NFS protocol. So they're going to need to make sure they have the right protocols that their applications will expect when they move to the cloud. And that's something NetApp has a lot of experience with. Second, the thing they're going to need to make sure it can have the data protection that it needs. So things like instant snapshots that you can recover from accidental deletions or, God forbid, crypto viruses and these types of things. So there's a lot of things beyond just the protocol that will make an enterprise file storage successful for the workload.
Sean, back over to you. How does Google help these businesses who house their data on-prem and in file storage? And what does NetApp bring to the table to make this happen?
Yeah, it's a great question, Katie, because as you just heard Jeff mention, NetApp has been around for 27 years, and they have tens of thousands of customers that are using their solution on premises and have satisfied a lot of those requirements that we've been speaking about already. But now we've actually been able to partner together over the last few years and bring that same experience from on-premises into Google Cloud. So now customers can transition applications as they need to into the cloud with two different offerings that we have with NetApp, with Cloud Volume Service, which is a managed storage service. So it has the file system protocols that Jeff just mentioned, SMB and NFS, but customers now don't have to manage it. They just choose how much storage they need, and where they want it. There's also Cloud Volumes on tap, which is where customers can manage their own environment. And it has all the same bells and whistles, if you will, of what they're used to managing on premises. But now it's a very seamless experience of on-prem and migrating to the cloud, or actually just doing a combination of both and keeping a hybrid model. And so we've actually been working together very closely to make that easy for customers to move into the cloud and make that transition so that when companies are ready to modernize their applications, they can do so, or if they want to lift and optimize, they can do that as well. So it can lead to a lot of flexibility for partners to work with customers on where they are with their applications. Like, for example, running SAP in Google Cloud doesn't require a lot of changes from a customer's perspective other than consuming it in the cloud. And that requires block and file. And there are lots of technologies that make it very seamless to do from that on-prem into the cloud deployment.
Let's continue on this topic of NetApp and Google working together in our second segment, the NetApp Google partnership. So Sean, you've also got question one here. Google is a household name for many, many reasons. It has thousands of engineers and resources. So why does Google choose to partner with NetApp?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kate, because one of the things that Google does is we have a portfolio of products, obviously, from our AI and ML work capabilities that we're very well known for, our infrastructure as a service, our platform as a service that gives companies the flexibility to run applications in either Google Compute environment or in their Kubernetes environment. But one of the things that we do also have a perspective of is an open ecosystem, is that Google can't satisfy all of our customer requirements. And so that's where we look to NetApp, one of the leading providers of on-premises storage for the last 27 years, as we mentioned in the first segment. We want to leverage that experience with Google and NetApp to deliver more value to customers based upon the applications they need, where they are in that application migration journey of doing a hybrid or a full cloud migration.
Jeff, what do NetApp partners think of selling NetApp in the Google Cloud ecosystem?
Cloud is, I like to say that cloud is not for necessarily everything, but it's for everyone. And that basically tells you that, no matter where your company is, chances are they're going to move to the cloud for something. And it's very important from a partner that might have a very, established relationship with that customer for an on-prem workload to make sure they let that customer know that they can also help them in their migration into the cloud, no matter what that workload might be. So the first thing is make sure you stay close with your customer and what workloads they're looking at. And second if you're familiar with NetApp and have the channel relationship with NetApp, we have platforms and methods for you to enjoy that relationship and the business relationship you have with your customer inside of Google Cloud. So instead of perhaps selling them a 100 terabyte refresh for a file or on-prem, you can now sell a 100 terabyte cloud volume and get compensated for that. So it's a great way for you to remain, tight with that relationship with the customer and remain in the compensation loop for helping that customer in their journey. And we have tons of partners that have done this successfully into Google Cloud. Some of our largest wins have been through channel partners, and they're instrumental to us in how we can do proof of concepts, trials. We just had a very well-known household name that is a consumer in Google in the financial services space. They really had a deadline coming up where they needed to exit a data center. Through our partner, we were able to do a very quick POC that made them comfortable to make this big commit into Google Cloud. The partner get paid, the customer's happy, Google's happy. It's a great 360-degree relationship.
So Jeff, what value does the NetApp Google relationship bring to NetApp partners, and how does it allow them to grow their businesses and increase their revenue?
Well, Google has a great number of services in their portfolio, and NetApp has a great foundation of data fabric. In fact, that's the key value that we're bringing inside of Google Cloud is the NetApp data fabric. That's not only about storage, but it's also about how you manage and protect that data. And then do things like cross-region replication, where a customer says, hey, I want to have my primary data center in US Central 1, which would be Iowa, but I want to have data protection of that thousands of miles away in Ashburn, Virginia in the east. And so we can build things like that inside of storage so that the customer doesn't have to go manually create software to do that. So there's a lot of technology that we're bringing to the table, but how they can make basically more money and more success inside of Google is building us into these applications such as a Windows file share migrations or SAP migrations or backup and disaster recovery. So we've built out use cases for each one of these solutions, partnering with NetApp inside of Google Cloud, And then as your customer is consuming, the channel partner gets paid. So it's a kind of a natural progression based upon the use case that the customer is looking at.
Yeah, and I'll add one other thing to that, Katie, is that, depending on where the partner is with that relationship with the customer about moving storage workloads or moving applications, there's a flexibility within Google Cloud to actually run them on some of the leading VMs, either GCE or GKE platforms. We actually just recently announced this month in February the AMD EPYC processor, right? So codenamed Milan. We do a lot of work with NVIDIA for having very high density GPUs for VMs. So depending upon the types of applications, where their customers are in this migration, they can run lots of different application workloads based upon the VM type, GPU, TPU, etc., and have file storage sitting right behind that. So again, it gives them a lot of flexibility to leverage the capabilities of the cloud with the capabilities of storage.
Well, now that we know why this partnership bolsters your partner's success and grows their opportunities, let's talk about how partners can get the most out of the NetApp Google ecosystems in our third and final segment, the migration journey. Sean, how should channel providers approach NetApp and Google Cloud, and how can they relay this to their customers to best start them on their cloud journeys?
I think the first step, Katie, is for the partner to have a conversation with the customer. Like, what are the business priorities for the customer, not only for this quarter or this budget cycle, but many times customers will have a 1 to 3 to 5 year plan for that. Jeff mentioned earlier the financial services company that had a data center exit strategy, right? That's one of the things that a lot of companies want to get out of is the facilities business. They want to get out of the data center business. And that can lead to a conversation that would involve a plan for moving applications over time, or maybe sooner rather than later into the cloud. I think that's also one of the things for the partners, once you have that conversation with the customers, to reach out to Google, reach out to NetApp, whomever you have the relationship first with, to begin that conversation, because the two of us, NetApp and Google, we have a very close selling relationship. So regardless of who you reach out to, you're going to have a unified response and oftentimes a joint selling effort, if you will, to be able to convey that value of what we can deliver to the customer based upon their requirements and their timing.
So let's actually bring this into some real world examples. Jeff, can you give me an example or use case of what Sean and I just talked about?
Yeah, we have, one of the things that we're very aligned with Google on is Windows File Share, because for this SMB protocol that we discussed, we are Google's partner for delivering that. And, it sounds kind of like, oh, it's a protocol. Well, if you have customers with petabytes of data, chances are a lot of them will have Windows file shares in that. And that's things such as, restricting access for file permissions to particular Active Directory groups. That's very key to InfoSec and security. So, we can certainly support that. And I'll give you an example of one where we had a great channel partner involved in this. We did a campaign around Windows file shares, kind of just as a lead gen, and we got an opportunity and worked on it with a partner. And this is a media company that has using NetApp storage inside of Google Cloud to develop real-time media for distribution in multi-channel world, whether it's in social media, digital, and print. And so they're using Windows virtual desktops hosted inside of Google Cloud, connecting to NetApp storage, and they have their creators and editors from around the world that are coming into the cloud to do the journalism, since they can't get together in offices. So that was a great one that was from one end of the spectrum in the media and entertainment space. But we also have others in the media and entertainment space, like music publishing, to big retail providers that are looking to migrate their entire operations and are using us with VMware. So there's a lot of different type of use cases around it, but we've worked very productively and proactively with our partners. As we do lead generation, we will land in with customers. And so we have a partner program that we're investing very aggressively in. We want to do more of our deals with partners in cloud. NetApp's a very partner-first company. We have over 70% of our deals are landed through the channel, and now we're doubling down on that strategy inside of the cloud. So we have dedicated Google sales teams to work with our channel partners to get going and to make their lives easier and the chances of success more in a faster rate, right? So getting more deals done faster at a higher margin with a channel program that compensates them.
So, Jeff, enterprises have been very focused on backup and disaster recovery for on-prem deployments, especially in this current environment. Where do these concerns fit into the conversation when partners are considering NetApp and Google Cloud?
Well, there's just numbers were just released that in the first half of 2021, over $600 million were paid for ransomware payments. And, the top number one is retail and consumer goods. Then you have your financial, manufacturing, and government, healthcare. I mean, it's frightening to see what's going on out there. So if the channel partner has a practice around helping customers with proactive plans to mitigate against these disasters. That's just one example of how we can work together. We have sales plays around that, but this basically is saying if you're moving your file systems into the cloud, NetApp has a host of technologies that protects that data, right? So if, for instance, anything gets in and starts overwriting files, you can recover instantly from snapshots. You can protect those snapshots into immutable object storage with something we call SnapLock. So there's a lot of things that NetApp has that can protect that in the kind of disaster recovery from the ransomware. But just like I said earlier, you also have multi-zonal or multi-regional availability for your file system. So if you have a natural disaster in the central, you can recover it in the eastern region, right? So you have a lot of capabilities in the disaster recovery and backing up into object storage, doing cross-region replication and for data prevention and survival that we can bring together. So we have a whole host of solutions, and we can bring that with you into GCP.
Yeah, Jeff, another good example of this is actually a win that we had at a healthcare company, and something as simple as file serving. The partners, as you're having those conversations, it can be really small or it can be really big and beneficial to the customer. So this customer had 80 different locations. They had filers, NetApp filers at each of the different 80 locations. They're a longtime NetApp customer, but they've got petabytes of data. They were backing that data up and they were having to manage it. But now we were actually able to go in with a conversation, an architecture, and a value proposition that says, keep your NetApp, move it into the cloud, and now you can simplify operations. You can actually remove the NetApp filers from the 80 different locations, centralize that in a region, and do a cross-region backup of that data. So now you're able to protect against ransomware, able to satisfy the backup and recovery retentions from a regulatory perspective, and they're able to simplify operations. They no longer have to touch physical filers out in those locations. Their users don't know that anything has changed. They're still accessing local SMB shares as they have been, but now they're able to reduce their capital expense. They're able to transition it to operational expense, but yet they consistently manage what they have been doing over time for many years. Now it's just in the cloud.
So, Sean, companies aren't just looking and thinking about modernizing their storage for today. They definitely want something that they can adapt and update for future needs. How do NetApp and the Google Cloud Platform address this need?
First is you have to have the platform to run whatever applications, right? And I mentioned before about the different instance types we have with what we announced with AMD and the EPYC, codename Milan processor in that family. So depending on what the applications are, we have the platform to run it either in GCE, Google's compute engine, or Google's Kubernetes engine, GKE. And then from there, it's really just a function of where the customers are for their applications, right? And where they want to modernize, where they want to start, maybe simply with the file sharing examples that we talked about, keeping data protection the same way they have on premises, or they want to start to modernize those and refactor them to run on more serverless architectures, if you will. So it really just depends upon where the customer is in their journey, but knowing that this is something that NetApp and Google can work with your partner and your customers to be able to start where you need to, and over time, get to the endpoint.
Jeff, let's start with you on this one. Where can partners and potential partners learn more?
Well, first of all, reach out to your NetApp channel manager or go to netapp.com and you can kind of contact if you don't have one already. Of course, we have our traditional partner program and we have a cloud component to it. So if you're not already a cloud partner, please reach out to that channel manager, ask for more information around the cloud partnership. We have training resources, dedicated channel managers for each one of the hyperscalers. So you can make sure that you're getting the right content for your customer for Google Cloud. And then we also, of course, have compensation programs so that as you're selling the Cloud Volume Service or Cloud Volumes ONTAP, in GCP, you're getting compensation for that. So just because your customer's data center moves to the cloud doesn't mean you can't move your revenue stream with them, right? You're providing value to your customer. We keep you abreast of the newer technologies so you can get those to them, do trials, do proof of concepts, get early access. And it's not just about storage. In Google Cloud, we just announced our new Cloud Data Sense program. So that gives you the additional ability to peer into that storage and look for any personal identifiable information, PII, credit card information, these types of things that can cause compliance risk. So that's new. We also have Astra, Project Astra for the Kubernetes, as Sean was mentioning, the GKE. So it's not just this Cloud Volume Service and Cloud Volume Zone Tap. We also have other services that are launching into Google, and we can help you drive your customer into there. So whether it's just a lift and shift for an existing application or whether it's a application rewrite and modernization, NetApp really provides a fundamental value for data protection in those cases, and we provide a good revenue stream in addition to Google's partner program so that you can really double down in their customers' cloud journey and profit from that.
Jeff, Sean, thank you both so much for your time today. And thank you at home for watching and listening. Once again, I'm Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.